high volume, a lot of bullshit, disinformation spread on many platforms. It works on different levels, so it tries to appeal different groups of people, ridiculing the message, because that's how you should approach the Russian disinformation, to ridicule it, because it's lies. There is no reason to have a meaningful conversation with anybody who's spreading bullshit. Hello everyone, it's Pekka Kallioniemi from Vatnik Soup and the Soup Central. Today we are going to share you with an interview I gave at the NAFO Summit in Lithuania. During this interview we talk about how my journey with Vatnik Soup started, how disinformation works, why NAFO is so effective, and other interesting topics. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and comment down below. Thanks for watching.
So, Pekka, as the commander-in-chief of the Vatnik Soup, could you perhaps elaborate on how you actually got to, well, cooking the stew?
So, most of you probably don't know, but I'm quite anti-social media. Have been for quite some time. That's basically where my research has been throughout the years. But then the full-scale invasion started in February 2022, and I thought that I need to do something. I think most of you probably had the same idea, like you have to do something, and I created a Twitter account. So I became a social media warrior, this kind of. I was taking part in these kind of discussions or arguments. And I realized that the arguments were always the same. So when you think about these various pro-Kremlin narratives, there's like it's not a big collection. So, for example, how many of you have heard about the genocide in Donbass? If you can, okay, Ukrainian Nazis probably. So it's the same stuff. So. To me, it seemed like a Groundhog Day. So I was just living the same discussions over and over again, and I thought that is there something that I could do about this? Because I have been doing research on disinformation and how it spreads really fast, and how it's a big problem. And I thought that this kind of collection of pro-Kremlin actors and the main narratives and how they are spread throughout the social media networks could be useful. Basically, it was a joke at first. I started writing about Finnish Vatniks. So Vatnik, when I talk about Vatniks, I refer to people who believe and or spread these narratives. So I started writing about them, and it kind of resonated with the Twitter audience. Then I started doing more, and I did a lot of research and realized that there's a huge network, and a lot of these people are connected through think tanks, NGOs, and it seemed that, okay, there might be some money actually coming from Russia to these think tanks and so on. So it didn't seem organic or grassroots. So that's basically how I started. Long answer to a short question.
That's how it's supposed to go. You have 202 entries in the whole, in 202 ingredients, I will say, in the Vatnik Soup. So I wanted to ask you if you have any favorites, or if you have any of these, people or organizations that, when you were researching them, that they really stuck out to you or got on your nerves. Any of those?
So yeah, a few favorites. So often the pro-Kremlin narratives they're very cynical, kind of nihilistic, hypocritical, and of course they're lies. So I think one of the biggest things that kind of draws my attention is hypocrisy. So people who are kind of doing it for, I don't know, fame, attention, often money. So I would say that Ian Miles Chong is probably one of my favorites because he did a full 180 at some point. It's like Vladimir Putin is an asshole, and then suddenly he's the best leader in the world and he's doing op-eds for RT. So something definitely happened in between. I'm not sure what, but yeah. So this kind of hypocrisy is something that kind of always draws my attention, and the willingness to spread information or disinformation that's like, it's so obviously a lie, yet you still decide to, for example, tweet about it. So I would say Yanmal's Chong probably is a favorite.
All right, and there is this notion that, well, a lie spreads, first of all, much quicker, but when it is followed up by a bit of, by truth or by debunking it, it's much more difficult to actually, dissect or to debunk this myth. So as you mentioned that you have worked with and you have done research in disinformation, is this notion true, and how does it face up in reality?
Okay, so I think that needs a little bit of background on how the Russian disinformation machinery works. So they have this method called fire hose of falsehood, which is like high volume, a lot of bullshit, disinformation spread on many platforms. Like you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have Facebook, like any Telegram, all of those mediums are used, and it's high volume and it's constant. So that's how the whole system works, and it doesn't really aim for any kind of discussion or argumentation. It's just spreading the message. And that's actually why NAFO is such an effective force, because it's doing the same thing, but it's ridiculing the message, because we know it's bullshit. And basically it's just swarming. It's this high volume approach to this big problem, the fire hose of falsehood. So NAFO is kind of countering that. And to me, that's why it's the best social media, decentralized social media movement ever. Like we've had several. We had Koni in 2012. Then the organizer was a complete, well, he was a crazy guy, and that's because it was a centralized movement. It had a hierarchy. But NAFO, we are just Shiba Inus, like brain-dead dogs posting memes and bullshit on like ridiculing the message, because that's how you should approach the Russian disinformation, to ridicule it, because it's lies. So I forgot the question, but you can ask.
Let's just go ahead. Wherever we go. No. Basically, yeah. I mean, so following what you said, so would it be a true statement to say that it is much better to ridicule and make fun of these propaganda tactics instead of trying to actually, try to dispel them by saying, oh no, this is obviously true, and try to provide A, B, and C and different arguments? Or should this be done in conjunction with ridiculing the message?
Now I remember what I was supposed to say. So yes, so there should be fact-checking. Fact-checking is fantastic, but the bad thing about fact-checking is it takes time, it's slow. Social media is like, because of this high volume approach, it's constant. It's one day and it's old news. Everything is old news. You already have, for example, on one tweet you can have 10 million views before it's debunked. So that's also why NAFO is kind of this first aid. It's like a tourniquet that you put on when you are hit or something. It's something that stops the bleeding. It's fast. It attacks immediately the narratives, and then later on we can do the fact-checking and kind of counter the information, because you cannot do it immediately. Nobody can do it. You would have to be constantly on alert and kind of do Googling, or maybe AI can do it, but so NAFO, that's why it works so well, because it's an immediate response to bullshit. And then later on comes the debunking of the actual claim.
You mentioned this already previously, but I was wondering if through your research and through compiling all of the information about pro-Russian activists or pro-Russian actors, have you drawn up sort of a picture of, or the anatomy of a vatnik? You touched upon this briefly, but could you perhaps elaborate? Because I believe there are different kinds of, or subtypes of, people that are doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, I have some like general idea. So it's a multi-level approach. So you have often the narratives work on different levels. So for example, if you take maybe how many of you have heard John Mersheimer? So you have, basically this is the NATO expansion, so NATO caused the war in Ukraine, the kind of, which is often targeted at intellectuals, academic scholars, and then you have maybe the more emotion-invoking genocide in Donbas, so okay, Ukrainians have been bombing or shelling Donbas for 8 years and they've been killing civilians, which is more like it's more like an emotional claim, whereas you also have the more intellectual claim of Mersheimer's realpolitik. So it works on different levels, so it tries to appeal different groups of people. It tries to find segments, okay, this might appeal. Another one that is very big right now in the United States is we could use the money to make American lives better. This kind of approach. So why are we spending billions in Ukraine? Because we could use it for social security or healthcare or somewhere else in the United States. But everybody knows that the money probably wouldn't go there, but still it's also this kind of different appeal for different audiences. And many of these appeals are targeted at the citizens of the United States because their help has been and probably will be critical to Ukraine, and it's just so massive, all the aid that the U.S. has sent to Ukraine, that they're constantly trying to bomb different segments in the United States and kind of polarize the population there, so that they would probably be more. They try to make them more kind of critical towards the aid.
So a very practical question, because I heard when speaking during the day or yesterday with some colleagues from NAFO, do you have any, and actually could you perhaps elaborate on what's the thought process and the methods that you apply during, your research and when trying to actually find the disconnect in the narratives, how to pinpoint exactly the lies in general? How was the work, in cooking up the soup of Vatniks?
So, some soups take longer than others. So, some are very easy because it's basically it's all there. All the information you can find online, and you can just create a nice story. They're all still stories, collated stories. I just refer to different sources, basically, and then maybe a little bit of speculation on my behalf. But basically, it's just a story but then some people, especially academics and scholars, can be tricky because they're not directly attacking anything. It's more kind of sophisticated attack towards the military aid and for example the so-called anti-war coalition is another example that can be kind of, you need to do a lot more digging. So this anti-war coalition suddenly came up after Putin decided to annex the 4 oblasts in Ukraine. So basically said that, okay, these regions are now Russia, and then, okay, now we have this anti-war coalitions. Okay, now we need to do peace negotiations because basically Putin has what he wants. So, but anyway, so I mean the process is chaotic. I just start writing, I just start collecting sources. I talk with people, I talk with journalists, I talk with people who also do research. I talk with a lot of NAFO activists, and then you just kind of put it together, and that's it.
So do you think that the current state of social media is actually allows this to be perpetrated even more? Or, I mean, would there be, in your view, is there an ideal way that social media could be set up that these narratives or these lies could not be well peddled, or is it just the nature of well, social media first of all, and us as people in general, just to that there will be, well, of course, malicious or just people that do not actually know all the story that will be actually spreading misinformation?
So yeah, I think there are some problems with the discussion to start with here. When we talk about social media, we mostly probably talk about Twitter. I know that some of you are on your phones right now and maybe checking Twitter, but it's mostly Twitter where this is happening. So Vatnik Soup is on Twitter, and another problem is that also Jessica brought up that we have a huge blind spot. So the global south, we are not really there. So how many of you are from the so-called global south? Maybe raise your hand. Not that many. All right. So it's
there's our answer.
We are not having that discussion with them. We don't know much about how this kind of information space works in the global south, how it works in Brazil, how it works in we don't know I know absolutely nothing about, for example, Argentina. So this is a very kind of centralized thing when we talk about NAFO. It's on Twitter, and it's basically the Western countries. But yeah, again, I forgot the question, but as you said, brain dead, so that's me. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of blind spots. We can, of course, we can already say that NAFO has made a big impact. It's definitely so. NAFO or NAFO? Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, we have a split on this.
Maybe you can have a fight later on, NAFO versus NAFO. We've made a big difference, but we have so many blind spots also where we don't really have any kind of effect. So it would be interesting to do some kind of future work also in South America, on South American propaganda and disinformation and how it works there. Yeah.
I mean, my following, yeah, round of applause, okay. So, Pekka, you basically just took away my question, which would have been what should NAFO/NAFO should. I mean, we need to have a vote on this. I mean, is it no, we don't fight? Okay, a meme fight then shall be called. Good. So, for now, then, are there any questions in the plenary? Okay, 1, 2. Mark, will you fight?
I got to the first hand I saw.
So those of us who came from the US, I think there's maybe 4, if I counted correctly, maybe 5. We think that in addition to the motion of fighting back against the Vatnik, there's another motion which is recruiting allies in the fight against the Vatniks. And you've offered some good ways of thinking about recruiting allies and helping to strengthen the assumptions they're making that are favorable toward what we're doing, and also fighting maybe against some of the false assumptions, the Mearsheimer type thinking that this is all the West's fault for goading the bear. So I'm wondering if you have ideas about recruiting allies in the global south or in other places where we need to strengthen, because the Russian propaganda machine is very active in Africa and Latin America, and those governments, India as well, are pretty crucial to the long-term struggle. So if you have some thoughts about strategies for effective recruitment of allies that's maybe different than the fight the Vatnik motions.
Yeah, sure. Just need to mobilize, basically. There are fellas in Brazil, there are fellas in Argentina. I know that because I've discussed with them, and they've send me messages, okay, have you considered writing about this person or this person? We just have to mobilize, basically. We are not having that conversation right now, and it's very easy to start a conversation. So we just need to kind of initiate this process. Like, recruiting allies is very simple. If they consider the Ukrainian effort worthy, of course they are ready for dialogue. So we just have to talk with them. But right now we are not doing that. I mean, maybe some of you are, but I can say that I'm not doing as much as I could.
I think we have time for one more. So who's the fastest hand I can see?
Thank you. I love the insights on that you make on how NAFO works, and for example, that we can be the first before even debunking the Russian disinformation. And here, I just want to ask, like, one more why on top of it. Like, why do you think it's effective when we swarm in and, you know, just ridicule the absurd claims of, I don't know, some kind of Russian propagandists? What happens in the audience of Twitter, in the minds of people? Why do you think it's effective, you know?
So why do I think NAFO, the ridiculing the opposition is effective, or?
Yeah.
Oh. It works because the message in itself is ridiculous. Because it's false, it's fake news. So why should we... Why should we take it seriously? Why wouldn't we laugh at it? Because it's ridiculous, it's bullshit. So there's absolutely no reason to have that discussion. I mean, the discussion can be had, but it should be maybe done somewhere else. It needs a lot of fact-checking, it needs a lot of referencing, but when the discussion is going on, for example, on Twitter, there is no reason to have a meaningful conversation with anybody who's spreading bullshit. Just doesn't make any sense.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do comment, like and share it with people who might be interested, and see you soon.